We've got a tremendous broadcast for you today. This is the Dawg Pound. And anyway, we have a new subject, a new dog pounder, a new member of the Dawg Pound Posse, our good friend Jason Harris. Hi, Jason.
What is going on, guys? I'm officially
Welcome
part of
to,
the.
oh, yeah,
That was pretty solid.
Pretty good.
welcome to the Dawg
Yeah.
Pound Posse and the queen of BDC. I mean, when you talk about brilliant women that know how to communicate in a dealership, we're talking about Bobbie Herron. Hi, kid.
I was prepared for you to say, but she couldn't be here today. Like I was waiting for that.
No,
Thank you.
we got her
Thank you.
for
Thank
sure.
you.
I'm glad we had that conversation to agree to wear red. Jennifer didn't get the memo.
I know she's all Americana today.
It's contrasting colors and complementary colors.
Colors that.
Okay. Anyway, the Empress of Executive Management, a woman who has held every executive position in a car dealership, one of the most brilliant women in the car universe, my friend Jennifer Briggs.
Hey, Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You got that little lag in your voice today, but
Listen,
we'll work with
yeah,
it.
folks, I sell cars. I'm not IT, so I'm having a little battle today. Just bear with me.
Okay, today's subject is the new normal. Now, strangely enough,
Is that two news?
la-
Is it new?
Super new.
New
AF.
the new normal. You
AF.
see, every expert and prognosticator in the business for the last 2 years is telling us that inventory shortages, built to order, no more subsidies on interest rates, no more rebates. That was the new normal. But guess what? It seems like all that crashed. So now we're having to deal with
Yeah.
the new normal. And the new normal strikingly resembles the old normal.
With a twist.
It's got a little twist to it.
Is this
Yeah.
kind of like parachute pants? Like everything kind of eventually comes back into style.
Listen, yes, it is
Yeah.
exactly like that, Jason.
It's like
And
high-waisted jeans and middle parts. These younger
I
kids are
just
messing
wrote
it
an
up,
article
bro.
for Digital Dealer Magazine called The New Normal that'll be out in about 3 weeks. And in that article, I talked about the fact that Toyota and Hyundai didn't fall for it. They stayed the course.
I think
And I've
Subaru
got
we
a-
can probably throw in that bucket too, right?
Excuse me?
We can throw Subaru in that bucket as well.
Well, Subaru's got its own bucket.
Okay, that's true.
always has, always has.
Oh, what can I say? What are you experiencing out there in the market right now, Jason?
You know what? It's funny because it just kind of depends on which time zone I'm talking to, and then which neighborhood of which city just happened to be in discussion. It's I would, I'm someone who loves identifying patterns, and I would love to say I've seen like some consistent patterns. I mean, I have, we have some really large dealerships, some largest ones of their brand in the country that are sitting on, 900 plus, in stock units. And then I have
800 or 900 in stock units.
Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at like Kendall Nissan, I think there were just over 800 new pieces of inventory. They're the largest Nissan dealership in the country. I mean, give them that much, right? But if you look at like dealerships like that, and then I can turn around and literally within the next 15 seconds have another conversation with a dealership, bordering the greater Toronto area or the greater Chicago area, and they're like, I got 23 cars coming in next week and they're already sold. It's crazy how much of a mixed bag. And then if you're a Chrysler dealership, that's another story. If you're a Ford dealership, that's another story. It's
Ford's got its own story.
Ford's got a lot of its own stories. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Bobbie, what are you experiencing in the market? You're working with a lot of dealers.
Yeah, and I'm running across the country all the time, all different makes and models and OEMs and people and time zones and countries. It's a little crazy. It's pretty much what Jason said, though. I mean, I have dealers that have solid inventory and I have dealers that don't. I mean, Before we were operating on a 30 to 90 day turn, depending on what we were looking at. And we're kind of in the same position now. We're losing what I think has changed the most and has the biggest effect is that there was a time when we used to stock inventory for our dealership based on what customers were looking for and not just what we sold. And unfortunately, now we're looking at just what we sold, and that's a mixed bag. We sold what we had, not necessarily what somebody was looking for. So I'm seeing a lot of allocation and a lot of vehicles coming in that don't fit the matrix.
Not only don't fit the matrix, but what was kind of interesting was the religion was Tesla and the religion was Carvana. I mean, those were the deities of the manufacturers and the stockholders and the board members. What are you seeing in that market, Jennifer Briggs?
Well, I mean, I think when we start talking about Tesla and the new normal, ultimately that's the model so many of them were chasing. Limited inventory, no rebates, but what did Tesla just do?
They just discounted $7,500 on 2 models.
Yes.
So the guy that they were all trying to emulate is now doing their old school tactics to be able to move inventory. So ultimately, I think it just goes down to the dealer being prepared and making sure that all of your profit centers are working efficiently, regardless, because some of the OEMs have been great. I know Nissan was one of the really early ones to start pushing and releasing inventory. And the hard part, to Bobbie's point, is allocations for a lot of the stores that I work. I mean, you get what you get. So it is just, this is what we have. Do you want to sell them or not? So we're still seeing some tightness as far as what we would like to have in stock. But ultimately, regardless of what the OEM is giving you, you've got to make sure that you're still pushing. And I think what we're going to see in this new normal, at least over the next 6 to 10 months, these are all the consumers who held off when pricing was super, super high. So they were like, there's no way, or I couldn't afford the payment when it was 10, 15, 20,000 over. So we're going to see that those folks are now going to be coming back to the plate, which is going to create some unique consumer experiences on your showroom floors.
Well, I'll tell you what we got to look forward to is the credit crunch.
Oh man, those interest rates.
The credit crunch has just started. And get this, Ford, I don't know if this has made the mainstream news in the car business yet. Ford just applied for a patent on cars that repossess themselves.
That repossess themselves?
Hold on a minute, like it's a targeted location or it drives itself back?
Drives itself back.
Both. Get this. Ford has applied for a patent. You can check this out. I didn't make this up. I didn't reach it behind me and pull it out of my anatomy. No, honest to goodness. Ford Motor Company has applied for a patent on cars that, first of all, will warn them with a voice over their radio. Your payments are falling behind, deadbeat, catch up. And then all of a sudden, they'll cut off your radio. They'll cut off your air conditioning. They'll cut off your heat. They'll cut off your cruise control. They'll lock you out of your car. And they'll start sending you annoying beeps to remind you that you haven't paid your bills.
My God, it's going to
finally,
be like all over again.
Resort, the car will lock itself up and drive back to the manufacturer.
You mean Ford Motor Company, who just had to recall how many engines?
165 engines that got delivered to consumers. That was the 2.3. Now this is another thing that Ford is leading the pack with missteps and screw ups. They are a real fustercluck.
Nice. That was a nice workaround right there. You know what, though?
Anyway, Ford Motor Company just announced that they are having engine swaps at the dealership. Stop sale. Don't deliver them. If it's ordered, you're SOL. 2.3 liter. That's going to be Bronco. That's going to be Explorer. I forget what other model. Ranger trucks. 2.3 liter engines. complete engine swap. Some dude in the dealership's going to replace your engine.
Well, yeah, Hyundai's having the same problem right now too. I have some Hyundai dealers that are literally doing, in some cases, 2 engines a day. If they can get
Hyundai's been replacing engines for 3 years that I know about.
yes.
I'm a little curious to see if, like, it's never the favorite when I say this, but I'm fascinated by technology, and I'm fascinated by social behavior. So I think that's a super brilliant idea. But what it makes me wonder is Ford about to start buying like super deep if they have such a huge concern over subprime, and then like what happens if you have, yeah, like what does that look like? I don't know the answer to that, but
there's a reason for that,
interesting.
Bobbie. There's a reason. Delinquencies, severe delinquencies.
Oh yeah,
are right now 7.3%, the highest percentage since 2008.
And I think that's just the
and
beginning.
in the prime market too. Yeah,
and not just poor people with low income. What it amounts to is it's the middle class that paid $15,000 too much for their cars a year ago. We didn't do a sale, we did a wedding.
I think it'd just be interesting to see the over under on that technology, the patent, the cost, all of those things, and what's the timeline for the payback on it, where the over under equals what it is, because that makes sense to me, especially with everything that's going out. But I'm curious to see what that means for the credit that they will buy. That could get real interesting real quick.
They can definitely
guess what?
Yeah, that would be predatory though. I think if they're developing a product for automatic repossession, then
I'm trying to picture a car driving itself back with a baby.
Anticipation, right? Anticipation of. And I'm wondering, did the patent say, like, now I got to look this patent up. Did the patent say that it drives itself back, or does it show location? Because you remember the old school, and it still gets used, the little box you put in the car.
Yeah, the starter interrupters.
I was a finance director for a very long time, for years and years, and we used it all the time.
Self-driving cars. Self-driving cars drive itself back to the Ford Motor Company. Now
so
here's what
leveling up.
Oh, you got to hear this. Ford attorneys said we probably would never use this. We just want to keep unscrupulous people from using it.
Of course.
So really, what they want to do is they want to be able to make sure that they kind of hijack the banks that deal in subprime in that way, that would want to work with them instead, and maybe come out with some new car programs. I'd be surprised to see if it wasn't available on certified as well, which, you know, as much as it's crazy, it's brilliant AF. I'll tell you that right now.
I agree. I think it's incredibly smart.
I think it's incredibly smart, even though I'm not a fan.
Like, as far as driving itself, the legislation that has to get passed before the vehicle can actually drive itself back to the dealership is going to be a while.
Yeah.
But
and
hey,
how many
I give them a round of applause for
self-driving cars. I think it's
ridiculous. But they're going to harass the customer with little beeps and chips.
I love it. It's great.
Jason, gotta not stop talking when you're talking. We're on a lag.
Messages flashing on the screen. Pay your bills, you deadbeat.
Well, I mean, we already have the boxes that we put in cars that buy here, pay here, and actually at a lot of the dealership lots as well, that will shut an engine down and prevent you from moving the vehicle. Now, it's not real technologically advanced. It's been around for like a bajillion years. I don't know the exact number, but I've been in the business for 21 and 22, 23, and it's always been around.
Bajillion, right?
That's been around for a long
time.
It's
a bajillion, yeah. It's been around for like a bajillion years.
Yeah, the starter interrupters have been around for a long time, but they are illegal in certain states. So I think that definitely, from a regulatory standpoint, not just from a good business practice standpoint, that's incredibly complex. And it seems like something would be a very small subsegment of concern for Ford to be investing so much R&D time on.
Well, they just patented it. I mean, that article's out there. And here's another story for you, Jen.
Missed opportunity.
Last week, American Auto Center closed 40 subprime stores. That was second to drive time in the subprime used car market. And Westlake Financial picked up all the paper. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense to start.
Subprime is crashing hard. people are not paying it. The credit segment is with the recession looming. This is the first segment to go. What do you think, Jason?
Oh no, 100%. I mean, how many people out there are driving $90,000 Honda Pilots? There's a lot. There's a lot more than you would think, right? It's supposed to be a 60,000.
That was a great program, though. I know exactly. That was crazy good. I would have bought everyone I could get my hands on and sold those suckers myself.
Right? But I mean, just like that's happening. I mean, we're already seeing. I mean, just look at the interest rates and what people are already rolling over. Into these new vehicles. I know I had a friend the other day that sold a $57,000 Explorer, and full financing, full term, it'll be a $96,000 car. By the time they're done at 7.27% interest, this
84 months.
This of course, this is the new norm. I'm even looking at myself like, what can I do right now to avoid from buying another vehicle? And I'm in the position where I need to purchase another one.
We're 80% 72 months now.
Yeah.
I wish I could just get excited about a new vehicle, as ridiculous as that sounds. I leased my vehicle back in 2016. My last day on the desk, last day of the year, last day of the quarter, last day in the dealership in operations, and I leased a vehicle that I didn't love, but we needed an RDR one. So it was going to be an Audi or a Buick. I got the Buick. At the end of my lease, I was so disenchanted with not only the process that I had to go through, but also with everything just feeling so blah, that I ended up buying the lease because it was cumbersome. And then it's got 170,000 miles on it, and it's my daily driver. And because I just, like 6 months ago, I had a 0% offer, and I was like, you know what? Time to buy a new car. I spent 1 whole month doing research, and I went, not yet. Can't get excited. I wish I could.
Okay, Frank Robinson said in the Northeast, our 90-day average of approvals is currently 7.9%.
7.49? Yeah.
Wow.
Well, some of that has to do with credit, obviously, and with delinquencies, but a lot of it also has to do with the hike in interest rates for mortgages, for auto loans. I mean, there is something to say about that. I would be curious to know what the variable is there. Like if it was 2%, I'm throwing out hypotheticals here. If it was 2% for the last, 6 months, and the average was 5%, and now it's 4%, and the average is 7.49, I'd be interested to see what the difference is in it.
We can go to autorate.com. Bankrate.com has all their stats.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, there have been manufacturers that are now trying to honor rates on pre-sold vehicles that were 5 or 6 months ago that were 2.5, in some cases 3.5% lower than they are today. And just try. I mean, that's a big swing.
It's a massive difference.
It's huge.
And look, here's the thing with Frank. What I meant was not looking up the interest rates, but looking up the averages in the store. There's no disagreement coming from me. I'm curious. Yeah. I'm a data nerd about things, so I like to know these things and understand them.
Well, he says it's 100% interest because they're looking at an average of 770 on the FICO.
Yeah, so
Frank Richardson on the sidebar said that their average credit score is over a 770, so they got good credit, and that rate of 7.49 is across the board.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it from not only nationally with interest rates, but from a depreciating asset, where the market values are so volatile for these units right now. The bank has got to be able to hedge some of that profitability. So in addition to just Fed rate hikes, when we look at what we are actually financing right now and what it's going to look like, I mean, it just makes me think about the lease bubbles back the last time we went through this great recession, where we were overstating all of those residuals. I think especially when we're talking about the captive lenders, I'm really surprised, Jason, that there are some still trying to honor that. I mean, good for them, but for those captive lenders, especially between, holding that paper, it's scary not knowing. And just from us, from an investment standpoint of what's on your lot right now, it's very scary to make sure that.
What if Carvana crashes all the way? They're hanging on by their fingernails on the edge of a cliff. What if Carvana goes completely bankrupt, completely away? What happens then? How How many thousands of units are they holding? What's going on there, Jason?
Oh gosh, if they went totally belly up,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that would definitely flood the market with some newfound inventory at a pretty reasonable price. I mean everything would go to auction pretty quick right now. You know,
Might be why they bought an auction.
yeah, I was going to say maybe there's like some preparation work in there of, now we're no longer going to be retail. We're just going to be wholesale. And I mean, it'd be kind of a clean way to clear off the books, to be totally honest with you. Let's just start putting
You
it.
know what I found out this week that I didn't know, and I get that Cliff knew it. Cliff Banks knew it. Everybody but me seems to know it. Did you know that Mike Maroney, the former CEO of AutoNation, was a board director and original investor in Carvana?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Did you know that? Did you know that, Bobbie? You did know that.
Yeah, but I only knew it because we had a guest on the show one time, and when we were chatting afterwards, they mentioned it. I did not know it prior to that.
I had no idea that Mike Maroney was an original investor and a board director of Carvana, one of 5. So he was actually betting against the rest of us.
Yeah.
Or hedging.
I mean, as usual with my unpopular opinions, there were a lot of, Carvana did some stuff right and they did a whole bunch of stuff wrong, and we do a whole bunch of stuff right and a whole bunch of stuff wrong. There is a blend between those two, between our industry and what a customer is asking for that we don't give, that could be magical. And I think that's what they were trying to find. I will say, for whatever it's worth, just like Ford with this patent, they were brilliant to buy an auction because they're going to need it. So, I mean, they need it a little bit now.
Well, during the pandemic, they had an edge because people had no other choice. We were locked in. I mean, and, when Tesla was the only choice, I mean, when Tesla had the EV market sewed up, built to order was the only way to go. But now all of a sudden, that EV market has leveled out. Everybody's got them, and even Ford, if they keep the engine fires and recalls down, they got a pretty good product.
Well, hence why Tesla now has a rebate.
Oh, there's a few other reasons too. I mean, there's the loss of a lot of the state and federal rebates, and then there was a actually price hike during COVID. So they actually did do a price adjustment during COVID. So when I saw the $7,500, to me, it was actually just more of a leveling out from what they did during COVID, and they jacked the prices up by about 4,500 or 5,500, depending on the unit. So I don't know if it was necessarily, I think it was more of just like a market correction.
So it's only a $3,000 rebate is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, look, there was loss in other potential programs and other rebates out there. And then of course, they did take advantage of an opportunity during COVID, and they had a market adjustment then. Now I kind of feel like this is just more of like, let's just kind of get it back to normal again. But man, feel bad for all the people though that purchased them or put their orders in. But then again, it was higher, but now your interest rates are also higher, so it's offset. Going back, Jim, to what we were talking a little bit about interest rates, is I had somebody ask me, go, "Hey, Jason, when was the last time you did a balloon?" I'm like, I don't know.
A balloon.
2003, 2004. He goes,
the General Motors Smart Buy.
You remember that?
Smart Buy.
I'm telling you, this is the writing on the wall for me. Is I'm seeing a certain manufacturer, but I'm also seeing some other banks start introducing 72-month balloons. And I'm like, and it makes sense right now because the way things are booking out, I'm like, go get that paper. But man, that's going to be an issue.
I mean, for some people got to better figure out leasing real quick.
Paul Sansone at 66 Auto Mall is running a program now leasing used vehicles. And even in the subprime market, and he's holding that paper himself, or his company is holding that paper. I don't know exactly how they're doing it, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, he's been doing it for five years at his own store, but and I sat with him at NADA. He's rolling out a program that other dealers can do, because as franchise dealers, we're not always used to buy here, pay here, let alone lease here, pay here, or even just a regular lease. But he does have a bank partner that if you don't want to hold your own paper, they'll hold the paper, and it still pencils profitably. And I guess, I mean, for me, used car leasing has been a way that we've dealt with things for a long time. And it's always been around for Highline. But again, with the volatility of the market, you got to be really careful what you're going to come out with on the end. But with Paul's program, it's only 12 months. It's really designed to be a short-term lease.
Well, I have also an increase in conversation around subscription models again. I'm like, oh my gosh, like deja vu. Let's bring those MC Hammer parachute pants back. Let's do this.
Listen, Jason, I bought a pair of bell bottoms a month ago. So
John Roberts says on the sidebar. Read that to us, Bobbie.
Another thing few are talking about is the total cost of buying a vehicle now versus pre-COVID. Prices up 8 to 10K and rates up 5%. Yeah. You know, I'm just going to throw this out. We've said this before. All through the pandemic, all through COVID, I have counseled my clients that I do operations management with, and we've talked about on the show that it's going to feel really good when you're making 8, 9, 10 grand a copy right now until you've buried your entire market, not accrued properly in your accounting system to fix it. And you better learn how to lease real quick, because you're going to have customers you can't get out without it. And you're going to have.
I'm surprised the manufacturers haven't come out with subsidized leases. I mean, I'm seeing everything else.
Oh, you're seeing their CPO programs. Like Land Rover's got a lease CPO program. So, I mean, you are seeing some already start to make moves like that.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of leasing. I mean, not just for myself, but I grew up in automotive in Michigan, which is a heavily lease penetrated market. I mean, I worked for Cadillac and Hummer as a finance director for a long time for Sonic Automotive, and we were over 75% lease penetration. So to me, selling a lease is way easier than just closing a car deal, and it's more profitable to the dealership. So I'm always amazed by when I travel somewhere and it's not common and they say things like, well, we just don't have that great of residuals, where often that might be the case, but you're going to need to get good at it.
Well,
Jim Fitzpatrick on the sidebar, average price of a new car pushing $49,000. $49,000.
That's for a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
I bought my first Lincoln Town car for $20,000. I guess it was a 1986 Lincoln Town car. It was $20,000. I thought that was the end of the world. That was
I keep cars for a long time. I keep cars for a long time, and I'm a high mileage driver, so sticking with the lease options usually works best for me. That's why I'm not really looking at pre-owned cars. But real quick, I don't want to segue back too far, but I did want to see if anybody else saw the article that came out about Carvana today. It's the CEO's dad. I think his name is Ernest something. I'm not great with names. He's the guy who got in trouble at the beginning of the pandemic for buying all those shares. Like the stockholders sued him, I believe, when it happened. And today or yesterday, he sold out his shares in anticipation, or a percentage of them. I don't have all the facts in my brain.
Who sold it out?
The dad of the CEO. And he made like
Ernie Garcia Sr.
billion. Yeah, he made like $3.6 billion. It was in the Wall Street Journal this morning.
Yeah, well, he's I'm trying to remember which one, the son or the dad's the convicted felon. I think it's
the dad.
I was going to say, from the sounds of what Bobbie just shared, I'm guessing it's the dad.
It's the dad. Yeah.
Well, when you say he's a convicted felon, he was part of that Charles Keating scandal of the late 80s, 90s. And it was the savings and loan scandal.
Hey,
and
when
they were selling junk bonds and exchanging people's life savings for junk bonds that were worthless. But evidently he turned state's evidence and took immunity to testify against his employer. Now he's a $3 billionaire.
Yeah, he's like worth like $19 billion. But I think it reported that him and his son own like 85% of the voting shares for the company. So it's interesting to me. I did not go in depth with it this morning, but I did glance at the article.
Let's trek back to the credit crunch. We've got so many situations happening. The subject of today's Dawg Pound, if you just tuned in, is the new normal. Everybody was saying the new normal was going to be built to order cars. Well, that sort of crashed. They were trying to emulate Tesla. Tesla was the religion, but the god of that religion has already moved on his trip to Mars, and he was already trying to run the woke activists out of Twitter. He has abandoned Tesla. So that's what's happening. So anyway, built to order didn't work, and let's face it, Farley at Ford, General Motors on a lesser degree, were chasing that built to order dream, and guess what? We got inventory on all the lots right now. I mean, it's incredible. What are you seeing in the marketplace, Jennifer? I know you're out there a lot. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, so inventory definitely is coming back. This is just going to go back to what I say all the time. These OEMs are completely and totally ignoring how American consumers like to purchase their product. And it never bodes well for a business who ignores consumer demands and consumer trends, because ultimately, for capitalism to work the right way, right? The buyer has the say and the power there. Most people cannot wait for a custom order. Not that I ever, with Ford, of course, really holding and locking everyone's hands on that for a long time. But even the Ford stores, I mean, it is, it's back to business as usual with a whole new set of variables. And I think
not just that, Jennifer, not just that, but dealers are negotiating again. I mean, I live in Atlanta, and almost every day there's the bow tie guy on TV advertising discounts. There's Linda Beaver. I mean, you ought to see the commercials we're seeing on TV. I visited 10 websites writing my article for Digital Dealer this week. The average discount on websites on a Nissan Rogue was $1,800 dealer discount, plus a $500 rebate. So, what do you think?
I'm telling you what.
Well, so, I mean, we knew it was going to happen. I mean, I don't think anybody on this show actually believed that the OEM was going to just magically keep controlling inventory and not ship units. I don't think anybody here thought that. So it's what we've expected to see happen as soon as the actual supply pipeline or the chips or whatever parts that it was causing the issue in production. We all assumed that fire hose was going to open back up. And here we are now. But the real thing that is going to create an issue is, especially for those folks that were holding off to not overpay and waiting to get back into that consumer power position of negotiation. Now we've got their equity or their trade values they're a lot lower. And we're going to see those, especially if this Carvana thing does pop and all of the sudden now everyone is out there, there's that inventory coming to auction. It's going to drive down the value of the car sitting on your lot as well. With
auto centers just closed 40 subprime dealerships. They laid off 300 employees. They were second to Drive Time. Drive Time is owned by the Garcias, the same people that were the major stockholders in Carvana. This whole house of cards is tumbling down at many, many facets.
Yes, and let's talk about the opportunity when those house of cards are falling apart.
Let's talk about the opportunity.
I think there's a monster opportunity here. And the opportunity is simply there's no loyalty.
Correct.
None. All right. Over the last 24 months, we killed, destroy, stomped in the ground, spit on it, and walked away from loyalty. There are some good operators out there. If you're listening, watching right now, you're a great operator. Just leave the room. But for the majority of this industry,
but if you feel offended, we're probably talking about you.
Well, then, if you feel offended, we're 100% talking about you. All right, you destroyed loyalty. So any other dealers out there that got half a brain around operations, there's a monster opportunity to come back in here and be the saving grace to all of those big bad dealers that were charging $5, $10, $15,000 over list, and so on and so forth. So I actually think there's a correction in the industry that is coming, and that correction is going to be between who are the real operators, and then who are the ones that were just in it to make a quick buck. What's that the cream always rises to the top. All right, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the best of the best come out, all right, and probably say, hey, look, industry made a few mistakes, but we're here to correct those and provide a better experience and lift that experience. And as far as interest rates go, they are what they are, but we're still here to help. Let's figure out what the best method of assisting our clients moving forward.
But to Jim's point that Jim just put, Jim Fitzpatrick's point that's at the bottom here, yes, interest rates are what they are, but if you are in your units, and we're not talking about new cars because you can't control what you're in those units for, but if you are, and it is, Jim Fitzpatrick, to address that, I have struggled so often, even before the pandemic, with people not running their used car departments like they should be running their used car departments. So I think that EV is going to kink that up, but we've already screwed it up. And there are people out there putting numbers on trades that don't even drive the damn car right now. And so when you're talking about how skinny things are going to get to be able to get an approval for some of these consumers, and you're not into your assets in an aggressive way that will allow you to get approvals for people, that's where we're really going to see the crunch. That's what I think.
And another trend I'm seeing, all of a sudden, a lot of dealers have abandoned one price. I wish Max was on this show.
They did. They swore up and down for many, 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 many years. This is what they were going to do, and then they once they saw the margin.
A lot of dealers that went to one price are now swinging the other direction. And the other thing I'm seeing is they're paying salespeople on gross profit again. The pay plans were all tending to be toward unit volume, and now all of a sudden, a lot of dealers are going back to paying a percentage of the gross profit on the deals, and they've reverted back to negotiating. I was swinging the other way. Now I'm going to have to swing back the other direction.
Well, I think both models are slightly incorrect, but that's me.
Yeah.
What I think is going to be a great. Here's one of the things I think is going to be a great opportunity, and any dealer that hears this and actually utilizes it will do fantastic, because new car prices are going to drop with all these rebates and stuff that are happening, and inventory is going to continue to come back. Who knows, third, fourth quarter of this year, all the stats are different, but the dealer who knows the LTV on every car in their inventory, who has everything pre-booked out and is either using a system or a process in place inside of their store to quickly get somebody approved, is who's going to win. Because look, people are going to buy cars. They're going to buy them at a reduced rate. And those of us who need them are going to pay the higher rate, knowing we could refi it in 6 months because our credit will allow it. Or we're going to go to our credit union, and you're not going to be able to compete to get the 150% LTV that you're going to need, that nobody will give you right now. But by demand, and in a new normal, the industry will have no choice but to offer something crazy like that. It's how it always works.
That's why they'll go to balloons.
Right. So if you don't know your inventory, if right now I came to you and said, I have a 780 experience score, and for some reason my trans is at 620, and you don't know which bank will buy that when requested, you're failing. If I came to you and I said I need 132% out the door before back end, and I'm going to pop in 2,300 on a warranty or on gap, and you're going to approve it, if you don't know which bank will do that and you're shotgunning things, you're going to lose. Because I can bet you that the banks, the credit unions especially, who know what they have to do to succeed in their loan department, are going to be on top of it. And it's such a simple thing to do that you should already be doing, that now would be a great time to get a process in place to be prepared for that. The only thing that happens is that you win from it anyway.
Well, it's going to come down to people, right? That's it. And that's that last comment I saw there said the same thing, right? About culture and also about staff. I mean, we've had 24 months of clerks checking people out. Beep, beep, beep.
Right.
Like just scanning it and letting them go. Now it's like, holy crap, we actually have to be consultants. We actually have to know our data. We actually have to know how vehicles book out. We actually have to know what banks, actually are going to buy and what they're not buying. Like it's actually,
we should already know that. But
Yeah,
How many
there's a
sales?
huge
How many
breakdown.
sales managers can work a car deal if the electricity goes out?
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't tested that theory in a really long time, but I'll tell you what, my mentor in the business when I first started, Bill Denby, oldest guy ever, loved him. I was a finance director. Last day of the month on the desk, the power went out. That man brought me a typewriter and I had to try to figure out a lease. And I'll tell you what, he sat there for 4 hours because he was like, my customer's not leaving. And I would have paid him the commission to get out of my office. I never
How
wanted
many?
to do
How
that.
many sales managers can work a deal with VIN crashes?
Most can when VIN
Yeah.
crashes, but typically, the sales managers are actively using their VIN the way they're supposed to. Say they don't even usually notice unless they read it in a group somewhere and go, "Oh, it happens to me all the time." You're like, "Really? When did it happen last?" Like, I don't know.
Bobbie,
Like that
there's
one
a
time.
question on the screen for you.
Oh man, not as many as you think did the downsizing or the elimination. A lot of them, I'm not saying that none did, but it's pretty consistent when that happens. What actually ended up happening is that they broke all the processes in their stores where two teams work together as one. And now they're struggling to correct that process because now the KPI can't just be showroom visits when there's not inventory and then closing deals when there is. You have to evaluate that. So, but you're right. A lot of those stores are going to be in big trouble. The good news is they have a great opportunity, and there's never been more people available that are good in a BDC than there is right now.
there's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of talent.
There's a lot of talent out there.
The struggle, I think, for that and for the ultimate efficiency is being able to, just like every other business, manage remote employees. We're so stuck in our ways to think that those folks have to be inside of the brick and mortar. But if you really are looking at having the best and most talented, you need to be able to manage employees virtually and think about that. I mean, most dealerships now, they're away from PRI phone systems. Everything is VoIP over web-based. And so you've blown out all the local talent because you let them go when they were freaking out about the world shutting down.
Or you cut
They're
their
not
pay.
coming back to you. So how are you going to rebuild that team? You're going to have to open your mind and open up to the idea of remote capabilities, and not just talking about like a third party BDC, but your own team handling those calls and those internet opportunities and the database stuff, but not sitting inside of your building.
But look, a lot of the BDCs where we're finding is an issue now too is that it got real easy for a long time to set appointments, and it got real easy for them to show. And I don't mean to imply that it's real easy or that it's easier or more difficult than closing the car deal, but just to say that a BDC run by a dealership is running into the same issues that a sales team is. And sometimes the very best operator can have the best of intentions and not know how to run or manage that BDC because it is a different talent pool. It is a different level of process, and it is a different KPI and expectation. So if you don't have that knowledge right at hand, then how in the world would you even know how? It's a totally different ballgame than having it in a dealership. And a lot of people will look at it and go, no, Bobbie, it's different. We have a great BDC. Okay, tell me what your KPIs are and tell me what they were for the last 6 months. And just for funsies, tell me how many vehicles were actually attributed to a plus business development culture as a result of the BDC last month, because I think you'd be really shocked to find out what it actually is. But look, they're the lowest paid people at the dealership usually. So, we put a lot on them for that and a lot of accountability.
I think BDC is fundamentally shifted, all right, as well as kind of the mindset behind it. I've actually now seen this more often than I ever thought I would, but instead of calling them BDC agents or BDC managers, they're engagement managers and engagement agents, and they're putting more focus on the actual engagement portion of it rather than the
I'll take a bow for that.
Well,
I'll
good
go ahead and
for
take
you.
a bow for that.
It's like, but I'm seeing
I dare somebody to find somebody else who taught it before I did.
It's happening more and more often, and that makes me
It
happy,
should.
Yeah.
Well, you can't set an appointment if you can't actually get someone to talk to you. And actually, I know, Bobbie, you said that it's easy. It was easy, but we've seen appointments as we've seen lead volumes go up because consumers are searching further and further for that limited inventory. The national average for the set rates have gone down. And so, and plus those poor BDC folks, most of them were not paid on a percentage of gross. And so while everybody else was getting fat, rich, and good looking, they had less shows and less units out. So they were making less and less money. And I think that did cause, not even if the dealers got rid of the department, but it caused a lot of friction for those types of employees.
So I'm super glad that you said that.
The new normal is what? What is the new normal?
Well, let me throw something in just real quick because I want to clarify something, because Jennifer has a perfect point. When I say it got easier, remember, I'm talking about the dealer perspective on it, where they go, oh, they had more people come in and it had a higher closing ratio, which isn't reality. That's actually
the shown
not how right. That's actually not how we would KPI that at all. But, you know, got to keep it in mind. But the new normal is the ability to quickly move with your market.
Yes.
It's going to have to be.
Well, and I know I saw a lot of comments in the feed around pay structures, and I think there's a new normal to pay structures. And you know, we've used pay structures in the sense of discipline, which is insanely stupid, right? Like,
well, pay plan's a job description too. How you're paid.
It does change the job description. Kind of like we were talking about, BDC is now more about engagement. Jennifer, you're 100% right. I think some of the most proactive dealers out there are not looking at how many leads they got, but how many conversations are
well,
they
the BDC, Jason, the BDC, you pay a minimum wage and slide some pizza under the door.
Which, like, you know what? I love it when he says this, because, and I won't go on a BDC rant, but I do just want to say this. You take, as a dealer, it blows my mind, because I know so many smart operators, and I go, hold on, you took 90% of your advertising budget, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000. And you put all the opportunities that came from this brilliant marketing that you paid so much for in the hands of somebody that you think is worth a minimum wage in a pizza. Just like, I don't know, let that sink in for a minute.
Minimum wage and a free pizza.
Let that sink in for a minute, because I'll tell you what, if it came down to a sales manager or a BDC manager, depending on the skill level and the talent, we'd be having a real rough conversation about who had to go. So it's a real thing, but also the engagement is important, because there's, just like with the salespeople, whether you're BDC, hybrid, or salespeople in this new normal, and what should have already be happening is, there is a difference between a customer you had a conversation with and a customer that you didn't. And those KPIs for results are not the same. But the only reason they say things like, oh,
Jason, I'm glad you're here with me, because I know how to get Bobbie wound up.
I do. I get wound up about it. But you know what it is? It's not even that. I don't even get wound up over the BDC about it. I get wound up over the fact that John, who
you're 100% right,
might not be able to put groceries on the table if this isn't done right. And
Bobbie,
that I watched dealers change pay plans through this whole thing for salespeople and BDC people, and they lost good people because they got greedy. And now those good people are somewhere else.
Like, I mean, BDC, like for me, I paid my BDC incredibly well. They are literally the first impression that a customer is ever going to have of my business. All right. I don't want, you know, a minimum wage people in there. I want people that are actively trained to actually develop out and set the stage and foundation for what an experience is.
Responsibility.
But that goes back to our pay plans. See, our pay plans are in this industry are always designed to discipline people, not actually to build people up and empower them, right? So it's like, okay, you didn't do this, so you're only going to get this amount. You weren't able to achieve this, so you're really going to be at this tier. You know, all of it was around discipline, and I think our industry needs to have a fundamental mind shift around pay structures, that they're not designed to discipline someone. They should be designed to empower someone, and that the more empowerment that they take, the more money that they earn. But
I wish people stop going to
Bobbie, your fiance, Bobbie, your fiance's on the side here.
Joel must be on here. I can't see him.
Yeah, Joel's on there. Hey, Joel.
Hi, Joel. It's interesting to me, because pay plans, I always think it's funny when people say things like, oh, they're working their pay plan. That's the point. Pay plans are designed to motivate people. And everybody who walks into a 20 group or into a Facebook group and goes, hey, what's your pay plan for this? Knock it off. Stop doing that. That is not how you motivate somebody on your team. And that is not necessarily the right way to do it, which is
how you motivate them,
why there's a struggle.
Empower them. I'll give you an example of how I did it with my sales managers, and people thought I was absolutely crazy in doing this. I did not pay on the gross profit of any deal, all right? Because I honestly felt like as a dealer principal, that was my responsibility more than it was their responsibility. What I paid them on.
What kind of dealer did you have? What kind of dealership?
Mitsubishi dealership. Mitsubishi.
You had Mitsubishi, okay.
Yes, I mean, the gross profits were already pretty much predetermined by the manufacturer for me anyway.
Yeah.
So what was I going to do about them? But what I did is I paid them on how much they discounted. I empowered them by giving them control over something. And I said, look, guys, I'm willing to discount $40,000 this month. I'm just giving a hypothetical number, by the way. I don't give a crap if you give an entire vehicle away. You can literally write the whole bloody thing off. But that's all you got in that bucket. So now it was a shared collective effort. All right. It was like, what do they do with this bucket? And they discussed and they strategized among each other and they actually looked at different things. And if they had to sell a Mirage for $3,000 under, then they did it. But I empowered them to make that choice on their own. Not me make the choice for them. And I looked at it as their collective effort, not just a singular transaction.
For many years, Jason, I consulted the Ed Bozarth organization. And Ed Bozarth was progressive. He would look, and if we didn't lose money on a couple units a month, he was upset. If we didn't,
It's
triple
you have
net
to
lose
empower the person. We do this in the service department all the time. Service departments get called slush funds, all right, and they're a certain amount every single month. They're designed for what? To maintain customer satisfaction and happiness. Hey, you know what? I understand the service may not have gone this way. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just take care of this one for you, and we'll next time it's going to be that much better.
Jason, we got a lot of people.
That mentality into the sales department. We always just kind of looked at it. So the cool thing was this actually gave my team the opportunity to look at the customer and their lifetime value, not just the transactional value. Right?
Well, that's the Ritz-Carlton. That's the Ritz-Carlton customer service method right there. And it's just empowering. But
is that the new norm?
Should be the new norm.
That's how it should have been the whole time.
That's probably true.
Adaptability.
But if we do it that way, we'll get the talent that we need to deal with this new norm. Right? The fact that we're going to sit there and complain about how bad the talent is right now, but we're still have pay structures that don't attract anybody else to come.
It's just
Jim Fitzpatrick said something earlier.
Yeah, he's on fire in the sidebar, by the way.
He sure is. Good job, Jim.
He said, what about all these people that we sold for $15,000 over coming back? Jim, we might have discussed that before you got on the broadcast, because that's part of the credit crunch. The credit crunch is just not poor people that with low income and bad credit. It's middle income people that previously had good credit or victims of circumstance. We put them in this buried situation. They can't get out of it. And the cost of living has increased in the last 2 years, 14%. Your money is worth 14% less. Everything is a 14% adjustment right off the top. So we got middle-class people. Their money is worth 14% less than it was 2 years ago. They paid $15,000 too much for a car. And we have created the credit market. The credit market is here.
Did you see Alberta's question? I love that one because it might not be an option if the FTC gets their way.
Right.
As far as no haggle pricing on F&I products. So for those of you who are not aware, that is on the table in a proposal that you have to have listed one price, no negotiation on those types of products.
No,
I've always said you should. I've always said you should. I teach.
But so many don't.
I'm the best F&I manager ever lived, ever was, ever will be. I mean, I'm the best F&I manager in the known universe. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have always taught one price service contracts. Florida requires it right now. There might be one or two other states. It's an insurance product. But I'd say to avoid predatory, deceptive trade practices have three fields. Deceptive trade practices is prejudicial, predatory, and predatory is the big one, charging way too much for somebody because of their personal circumstances. Predatory, discriminatory, and prejudicial. Those are the three parts of deceptive trade practices. And to avoid deceptive trade practices, I always started service contracts and things that are negotiable off at a set price for everybody. Now, I did negotiate downward, but never up. You follow what I'm saying?
So hopefully, Alberto, that answered your question. And I'm so sorry, Jim. I was just laughing at Fitzpatrick's comment that all he needs is gap and a match. He can fix it.
A gap and some accelerant and a match.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my gosh. Gap was a bad investment the last couple of years.
I'm gonna have to worry about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, this has been one heck of a broadcast. The new normal. Bobbie, in 2 minutes, and I know that's difficult for you, but try
It is.
2 minutes. Tell me the new normal.
I'm going to go ahead and represent Max while he's not here and say adapt or die is the new normal.
Oh, you're going to take Max's 2 minutes. Okay.
I am. Yeah. With your permission, I will just throw something else out here too. I think part of the new normal is that we have to start looking at different skill sets for positions that we previously filled in a different way. I'm not saying a sales manager is obsolete or anything like that, but what I am saying is, like, I'm recruiting currently right now for a dealership that is looking for a sales manager that has to have a BDC background or be a BDC manager now. That is the role, that is the rule, because that communication level has to have been taught and lead handling has to be taught in the store, things like that. And I think we're going to start to really see a crossover in positions where internet managers are GSMs and BDC managers become sales managers or vice versa. And it should have been that way for a long time.
That's
But
the
it always
CarMax
hasn't been.
model. That's the CarMax model. Always has been.
Well,
That's what I've been training with all of my dealers. If you understand how to engage with a consumer, when 95% of all of your buyers are transacting or researching that way, how can you actually lead a sales team? And I think just the new normal, and I think that one of the things that I've been most shocked to find, because my metric standards, even with the changes, I don't like to perform average. And some of the average numbers that have been shared over this last 2 years, an average of only 25% of your internet leads are engaging with the dealerships. That's disgusting, in my opinion. And this laziness. My teams are constantly hitting closer to 70%. So we talk about the new normal is just actually doing a good job of paying attention to your customer and your teams. Like, I don't feel like that's new.
Well, the new normal is the old normal. And now
I love Vincenzo's. I love his post.
Member of our team, Jason, what is the new normal?
Look, our industry has always said that we are a people business. Yet the actual dollar amount on P&L statements for people, I'm going to tell you right now, because I've consulted with hundreds and hundreds of dealerships, it doesn't really line up with what that statement is. And this is a people business. All right. And I think people that really kind of understand that the investment that we make in our people is a direct directly affects our operations. It directly affects the experience. And, you know, for you to go out there and I think to hire subpar people, you will get subpar.
Wait a second, Jason, I have said for many years, and I just said it in that article I wrote for Digital Dealer, get rid of bad people.
Yes, and be quick about it. And I think back to Bobbie's point is really take a look at the job descriptions. And here's the way I approach job descriptions is how does a job description serve customer? Not you as a business, but how's that job description serve the customer? We have a tendency in our industry to write job descriptions for our business, what the business needs. But I'll tell you right now, when we put our clients first and we write job descriptions with the intent of serving them, we're the ones that always actually end up winning. So like I said, I think we need to take that statement of we are a people business and actually mean it.
Right.
Jim, you're awesome. Jim Fitzpatrick is winning today. It's
we had more fun today on this broadcast. You know, it's amazing. I was looking at getting some dealers on that are buying a bunch of dealerships, but they were too busy to come on. So without Max and April, I said, hey, let's just get this group together. And I wrote that article. I just turned it into the publisher today. The new normal. My article about 3, 4, 5 weeks out till they publish it in digital dealer. And I'm thinking, I looked at all the things, Ford Motor Company struggling with recalls and stop sale orders and engine replacements. And by the way, Ford Motor Company is not the only people replacing engines. Honda CRV, engine problems. Hyundai, engine problems. A lot of people have taken their eye off the ball, replacing engines, stop sale orders,
Right.
engine fires on the new EVs. Quit it.
Good times in the
Okay.
business.
Okay, everybody. We could go on and on and on, but you know what? We've burned an hour. Everybody wave goodbye to the
Yeah.
audience. Bye,
That went
Fitzpatrick.
fast.